Because according to the sanctuary service, that's after the judgment, then there's a Feast of Tabernacles. When there is persecution, somebody said, it's not only persecution, Uncle David. When we go to heaven, we're going to be traveling for 7 days in temporary housing. And when we get to the New Jerusalem, it'll be on the 8th day, we're having a great feast. Oh, well, there's multiple ways to see how God's going to fulfill the Feast of Tabernacles. If you want to understand what God is doing, you have to keep your eyes on the sanctuary. You have to understand the feast. You have to understand the dates. You have to understand the process. Because He acts according to His plan. I would not be surprised. There's no way for me to say it's going to happen, but I would not be surprised that the latter rain in its fullness will be poured out on Pentecost. Again. I can't say I have to wait. But every time it's Pentecost, I pay special attention that I'm ready to receive the Holy Spirit. And every time 10 days before the Day of Atonement comes, I prepare my heart. What if my name comes up? I preached a sermon similar to this in my home church in Marion, Illinois. And one of my parents, my dad is a head elder there, a retired pastor, and one of the members came and said, David, I didn't understand, but this week I was chopping wood, and suddenly a voice spoke to me. I was out by myself on the farm, and a voice spoke to me from heaven. There was nobody around, but a voice said, get your life ready. Your name is about to come up. I thought, maybe I'm going to die. No, He didn't say your number is about to come up. That's what we say in English, right? Your number is going to come up. No, your name is about to come up. Get your life ready. And I didn't know what that meant until I heard the sermon today. Brother and sister, we better keep our life ready. We're living in a day of atonement, when our lives cannot be anything but ready every single day. These are the principles that I'm going to tell you a little bit about. Based on these principles, I believe God is specifically intervening in some people's lives so that they can get ready, and their experience can help us to get ready. I was in Brazil last year, near Sao Paulo at our television network. I was meeting with all the teams. We went to church in the morning, and then in the afternoon we had a meeting with all of our personnel and volunteers and those who do recording. There were several pastors there. They come and record at our TV network. For those of you that speak Portuguese, the name of the network, you probably know it is Terceiro Anjo, which means the Third Angel Network. TerceiroAnjo.com.org as well. And Third Angel. And we're trying to give this message, and we all met together, and one of our producers came and said, do you mind if I tell my story? And so Marco stepped forward, and he said, just a few months ago, I had a dream, a vision. I don't know how to say, but it was so real, like if we were here today. It wasn't just a dream that kind of you forget about it in the morning. It happened to me. And I was walking along a path with 5 or 6 people wide, a long line, and as we got closer, we could see that Jesus was standing in the middle, and as the people came toward him, he would say, left, 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 right, left. Almost everybody was going to the left. And I realized Judgment Day had come. Just like Matthew 25, 31 and on, when you read about the separating the sheep and the goats. And he said, oh Lord, I've been an Adventist all my life. I've been in the church all my life. I've carried responsibilities. Oh, I hope he says right. But when he got closer, Jesus looked at him sadly and said, left. What could it be? I've lost my eternal life. What did I do? And while he was thinking these thoughts, an angel touched him and said, you were almost saved. What does almost saved mean? Why? Why was I almost saved? What made me to lose eternal life? And the angel touched him again and said, because you ignored the small details. And he started thinking, small details like the way I keep Sabbath. Small details like the music I listen to. Surely God doesn't mind if I watch a movie now and then. Surely I can do this. Surely God won't. It's something very small. And he started seeing all those little small details in his life that he thought were not of consequence. And he came to the realization, God is a God of small details. He said, oh Lord, if only I could have another chance to correct those details. And the angel touched him on his shoulder and said, God has heard your prayer. You will have another chance. And he woke up. Ah, such relief. He promptly cleaned up his Lord. He knelt down. He gave his heart to the Lord. Clean my life. Out with the music. Out with that. Everything, that entertainment. I want to put those small details in order. And he put all those details in order. And he said, oh Lord, thank you very much. And then he said, my wife now wants to tell her testimony. And she got up and she said, 2 weeks ago, an angel appeared to me also in a vision. And she said, we told your husband to fix the small details, but there's one small detail he has not fixed. She said, what is it? Tell me what it is and we'll fix it. You're still living in the cities. And you know better than that. Follow God's counsel and move out into the country. That's a small detail that you have to fix immediately. They were able to sell their home in just a few weeks. Not everybody can do that, but God has a plan for everybody. We know that if you pray and surrender everything to the Lord and ask Him, He will show you the way. But they sold their house and they're living out in the country. They still work in the city, they still work with the people there, but they're following the instructions to live on the outside. I just spoke that in Amsterdam. How many people live in a city in Amsterdam? I just spoke it in Lima, Peru. 12 million people live in Lima, Peru. Brothers and sisters, this is not a game. God is revealing things to His children and letting them tell their testimony so that all of us can understand God is a God of small details. Put your life in order. Prepare, O Israel, to meet your God. And follow His advice. He's given us the advice. Why should we be rebellious? Why will you perish, O Israel? Why would you die? Well, in 2015, early 2015, somebody called me up and said, Uncle David, I have a message for you from God. I had somebody call me and tell me that one time too, and the message was not from God. You have more power in you than you think. You can destroy your enemies with one word. Just like Elijah, boom, say the word and they will be burned up. I go, what? You can do that. You have internal power. I said, sister, if I believed you, I would lose my whole entire connection with God. Because if I believe I have power in God, Jesus said, without me ye can do nothing. Jesus did not come to destroy. How can I come to do that? If God wants to pour out judgment, let Him pour out His judgment. But don't make me believe that I can do this on my own and that this is the whole Spirit that's foreign to God. God eventually pours out His judgments, but that's His decision. And I said, I'm sorry, I reject that message. I cannot accept it. So when this person calls and tells me I got a message from God, I go, we'll see. Now you tell me if it was or not. Here's the message. God said, please tell David that I have a lot to teach him still, but I need more time with him. He's too busy. Do you think that's a message of God? Is that your message for you too? It's a message for all of us, isn't it? I said, thank you. So I knelt down and I said, Lord, man, I've given birth to projects in 94 countries. If a mother has about 20 children, that mother hardly has time to sleep. And I got children all over the world and projects, they call me, and I'm doing it to advance your work. and I know it keeps me busy, and I don't want to miss that. But how can I tell one of my project directors, I don't have time for you anymore. I know you're suffering. I know you need advice. I know you need help. Leave me alone. How can I do that? So Lord, please just forgive me. But somehow, in my busy schedule, even though we spend time together each morning, I don't have too much quiet time the rest of the day. But please just forgive me and teach me. Crack my head, whatever you have to do. We all have hard heads, right? It's hard for God to get in here. We need silence, and I don't have too much silence. But please, Lord, please, I humble myself before you. And then a bunch of things begin to happen which I did not recognize as having anything to do with it. But then, as I started connecting all the pieces, I began to realize I'm beginning to understand some things. At first, a little bit nebulous, and then a little bit more in focus, and a little bit more, a little bit here, a little bit there, experiences, testimonies. A physician friend of mine from Walla Walla wrote on April 30, and he said, I had a dream last night, a very vivid dream. I just want to share it with you. I don't know what it means. But in this dream, I was told, in yet 5 months, and I will judge the tribe of Levi. I don't know what it means. But it must have something to do with judgment, and it must have something to do with the church. Because we are the tribe of Levi. We are those set aside to deal with the things of the sanctuary. Yes or no? We're the only ones that understand the sanctuary. Actually, we think we are. Did you know that other evangelicals, I heard a Baptist pastor give a presentation on the sanctuary, and I thought it was an Adventist presentation because God's not keeping this message only to himself. If we're not going to share it, he's sharing it with other people who will share it. If Adventist pastors won't share it, Baptist pastors will. We're going to lose our crown. I'll tell you what, if you don't hang on to what you have, you're going to lose your crown. That's why to Philadelphia, God says, hang on to that which thou hast, that nobody take your crown. Hang on to what you believe. Don't let them steal your crown. But what does it mean in yet 5 months? He said, I've added up biblically 5 months, and it takes me to the last part of September. September 23. What's going to happen September 23? I don't know. But that's what it comes to. Well, I said, interesting, and went on my way. A little piece of information. And then I recorded a message when the Pope finally came on September 23 to the States. I recorded a message saying something is happening. If things are advancing, do you believe that the Pope's arrival to North America and his possession of the Congress and the White House, do you think it represents a fulfillment of prophecy? Are you sure? I am too. It's being fulfilled before our very eyes. And yet, when did we read about it in any official magazine? In South American Division, the pastors received a video. Do not speak about the Pope's arrival. This has nothing to do with prophecy. The whole division received the same instruction. Today, Adventist pastors are being controlled about what they can preach. And if you care about your job, you just obey. But if you care what God tells you to do, you won't have a job very long. So my advice is, cast your situation in God's hands and go forward, launch into the warfare. If you don't have a job, congratulations for you. Now you're freer to preach. Or keep your job and go to hell. But you report to God first, not to man. And pastors that report to man first will find they have lost their salvation, because God will then raise other messengers to do their job, but they will have lost their crown. My dear fellow pastors, wherever you are, if you hear this, go to God and beg his forgiveness and place yourself in his hands and say, anything you tell me to do, I want to be your ambassador. Because if you're an ambassador for man, you're no ambassador for God. Let's get this clear now. The king calls you to be an ambassador, and you must speak his words faithfully. If you're not, you're no ambassador. Your credentials will be removed, and you will be cast out into outer darkness. Let's get it straight from now on. Every one of us are to be faithful ambassadors. Tell it the way it is. So I said, if things are happening on earth, things are happening in heaven as well. Things are moving forward on earth, things are moving forward in heaven. God is drawing things to an end. He's recognized, we're in a shaking time right now. We are in a shaking time. Every single person, every single administrator, every single pastor is having to choose sides. Don't just think, poor me, I'm under pressure. Everybody's under pressure. The GC president's under pressure. His life was threatened after he preached his sermon in 2010 after Pastor Wilson was inaugurated. His life was threatened for preaching that sermon. He's under pressure. He has to choose sides. The divisions have to choose sides. The unions have to choose sides. The fields have to choose sides. Every member has to choose sides. So don't feel sorry for yourself. Choose sides. Choose ye this day whom ye will serve. You can't be in the middle anymore. Christian Service says God is looking for men that will stand, and women, of course, that will stand forward and will demand that you identify yourself, not only to identify yourself, but to come forward and prove that you are a servant of the kings of, loyal to the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. Prove it. Are you an Adventist or not? Don't just sit there. Prove it. The universe is looking. People are waiting. Are you an ambassador? Then come forward and say, I'm an ambassador, and I report to God. Because if you report to man, stay in the back or get out of the church. Or God will spew you out. God would rather you are cold than lukewarm. Declare your coldness and leave. I don't know why people who do not want to believe in the Adventist message, why do they stay inside? Don't you know what's coming to those people? It's much better to leave than to be vomited out. God says, I'd rather you were cold or hot, but not lukewarm, because I will have to vomit you out of my mouth. So something is going forward, and we're making choices, and our decisions that we make today are determining our eternal destiny. Someday soon that will be recorded forever with no changes. But you know the decisions we make? When Jesus was on earth preaching, he was very tender with the Pharisees at the beginning. And as they dug their heels in, as they began to become more rebellious, as they planned his death, he became more clear until finally he said, you are of your father the devil, and the will of your father you will do. You say, but the time of probation hadn't finished for Israel yet. Jesus recognized they had made their decision. He would have never said that. But he was praying that they would change their minds. But they didn't. The time of probation ended on Sunday afternoon after the triumphal entry. As the sun was beginning to set, the last hours of probation were still open. But the sun set and the destiny was sealed. He still gave them 3.5 more years to let people individually make decisions. God is merciful. But eventually the door closes. And some people make their permanent decisions even before the door closes. God recognizes the decisions. On July 2015, at one of the favorite events that I ever go to in the world, it's called the General Conference Session. All your friends from around the world, any place you used to work, all of those colleagues that you have served with, you can see them and talk to them. It's a wonderful time. I've never missed one since 1980. 80, 85, 90, 95, 2000, 2005, 2010, 2015. Everyone. I haven't missed one. 2015 had a lot of interesting, but it was one of my favorite general conferences. There was a lot of prayer. Every time things would get heated, women's ordination was the big thing. That whole world was focused on the issue of women's ordination. Every time things got heated, the chairman would say, "Let us stop and pray, brethren," and you could feel the temperature drop. We've never prayed so many times that I remember as 2015. I appreciate that they call for prayer. But as is frequently or almost always the case, when the big issues are decided, nobody's watching anymore. What happened on Thursday and Friday, many of the delegates, especially those from Africa, South America, they want to go shopping. They weren't sent to the States to go shopping. But they figure there's 4,000 or 5,000 of us, I don't know, I don't remember the number of delegates. There's thousands of us. Nobody will know if I'm missing. I'm going to go take advantage this afternoon to go do something. And everybody knows what happens. The seats are empty everywhere. The big issue has been decided. The world voted on no. The World Church voted no to women's ordination. 4 divisions said, "We don't care what the World Church says. We will do what we want to." Open rebellion in the ranks. Sometimes they call speakers dissidents. Excuse me, the dissidents are those 4 divisions. The World Church spoke, and the divisions say, "We don't care what the World Church says. We want to be separate." The North American division, Trans-European, Inter-European, and South Pacific division. We will continue doing what we want to do, and we really don't care. In fact, it's gotten worse. The South Pacific division has already has already requested, and they're working on a request to totally legally separate from the World Church. So what happens if you're a member of the South Pacific Division and you're not a member of the World Seventh-day Adventist Church anymore? They will change their legal name. They will be legally separate, but we will still work together. It's like, let's get a divorce, but we'll still be friends. Excuse me. The pillars are falling apart. The structure, we knew it when we pulled the middle pillar of the sanctuary out, the roof collapses. When you pull 4 divisions out, and they start going their own way, no, I won't. That's too intimate. I was going to tell you something, but one union here in North America years ago voted that in session that they were no longer going to be responsible to the General Conference. Immediately, their credentials should have been removed. The entire membership should have been disfellowshipped, and all the assets taken, and everybody fired. What happened? Nothing. Now a division wants to do the same thing. Nothing. In fact, they're already ready. Most of the assets in some conferences here in the United States have already transferred all of the church properties outside of the conference. So if for some reason they're disciplined, they'll say, "You can keep your piece of paper. We own all the properties anyway." You don't discipline the son? Eli did not discipline his sons. And God punished Eli because he was unable to discipline inappropriate behavior. And we have been unable to discipline rogue behavior and rebellious behavior within our own ranks. And the more you let it get away with, the more rebellious they get. Well, guess what? In the afternoon, when nobody was present except a few delegates, a very, very, the most important things that could have come up came up. It was suggested that we make a lot of changes, some of the changes in our church manual, some of the changes in our basic fundamental beliefs. Some well-known pastors stood up and said, "Please, do not make those changes. Remove those suggested changes from the list. That would change the whole direction that we're going. It will make us different than we've been for 150 years. They will change the whole Advent message and who we are. Our identity will be changed. Please take it off. And the chairman was very fair. The chairman said, we have a motion. How many delegates would like to take off those proposed changes? All those in favor? All those against? Okay, it is rejected. The two changes will remain. The World Church voted clearly, knowing what they were doing, they voted to make the changes. And the changes are these. All you have to do is pull out a book on fundamental beliefs before 2015 and a current one, or go to the GC website and you can read what we believe, and those changes have been made. We no longer believe in the imminent coming of Jesus Christ. 150 plus years, this has been our driving. Why do you think we have the name Adventist? We were born in the Advent message. It's the midnight cry. The bridegroom is coming. Let us go forth to meet him. And because of that midnight cry, it's supposed to shine the whole length of the path. And those who deny the light will eventually fall off the path. Sadly enough, while we were cared